Hi, I'm Nikki Jovicic from Lookupstrata, and I'm also the Managing Director of Tower Body Corporate. I'm your host for today's session. I'm speaking with John Trowbridge from Trowbridge Consulting. John is a highly respected figure in the Australian insurance industry with decades of experience as an actuary, consultant, company director, and insurance regulator. Those of you who attended our panel discussion on insurance renewals last year might recall John's insights on Phase 1 findings of the independent review of Strata insurance practices. And today we're speaking with John about Phase 2 of his review, which focused on the critical issue of intermediary remuneration. We'll examine potential conflicts of interest that can arise from current remuneration structures and unpack what John refers to as black box arrangements and other questionable practices that can lead to higher premiums and limited choice for strata owners. Are these practices legal, and why haven't they been addressed before? John will shed light on the underlying reasons and the challenges of tackling these issues. But it's not all bad news. Phase 2 also proposes recommendations, and John will share how to identify potential conflicts and ensure greater transparency when dealing with intermediaries. By the end of this session, you'll have a clearer understanding of how remuneration practices impact strata insurance and what steps you can take to protect your interests, including examples of how to ask better questions about intermediary remuneration when dealing with brokers or your strata manager. Now, before we begin, I'd like to mention that the information in this session, including the discussions arising from submitted questions and chat conversations, is not advice and should not be relied upon as advice. You should seek independent advice before acting on the information contained in this session. Thanks for joining us again today, John. Can you tell us about the independent review of strata insurance practices? What motivated the review?
Well, the review was motivated by, it was really through Robert Kelly, who's the CEO of Steadfast, and he was concerned. As many of you will know, Steadfast has a big stake in the strata insurance business through the ownership of CHU and of some brokers, and there are network brokers too allied with Steadfast. And Robert was very concerned about the convoluted nature of strata insurance, whereby there is a broker who's receiving a commission from the underwriter. In most cases, that commission is passed on in part, or in large part, really, to the strata manager, and the strata manager then arranges a broker fee to go back to the broker so that everybody gets paid. That's a very convoluted system, and Robert was concerned about it because almost nobody understands how it works except people in the business, and that's not a very healthy situation. What we really need is for owners to understand the system, and indeed I was asked not only to look at how the system works, but to suggest how it might be modified in order to make it a more comprehensible and better system. So that was the origins of it. When we started, I was going to look at both the disclosure, how it all works, and also how it might be modified. But it became clear early on that until everybody knew how it worked, myself included, because I found it confusing too in the beginning, even though I've been deeply involved in insurance for a long time, this idea of having two intermediaries, a broker and a strata manager, and them swapping around remuneration between them, often without consultation with the strata committee, is just not satisfactory. So we ended up with phase 1, which was all about just establishing the disclosure, followed by phase 2, which is intended to be the primary focus, I think, Nikki, of today's session, is to see what we think about this system and whether it ought to be changed.
How will the review findings benefit strata owners, John?
Well, the first step is disclosure, and let's put up the first slide, Nikki, which shows what this thing looks like. It's complicated. So we've got the owners paying levies to the owners' corporation, who pay the premium and a broker fee to the strata manager. The strata manager then pays all of that through to the broker. The broker then gives a rebate in most cases of part of the commission back to the strata manager, and the broker passes the premium less any commission onto the underwriter, which is the underwriting agency or the insurer, in most cases underwriting agency. Because of this complexity of the setup, I designed a template so that people could understand the numbers involved in their own insurances. And that was 2 years ago. And a few months ago, the Strata Community Association began or published for its members, and is still working on for its members, a version of what I've proposed. And they've done a fairly good job, but they have not yet done a complete job. So what we see on the left-hand side of this screen is section 1 of the template that I recommended. On the right-hand side is the SCA's version of the same template. Now, if we look down the template, we see that on the left-hand side there's a thing called total insurance premium. In this example, $13,850. And below that is a broker fee and GST on that broker fee, so that the total insurance costs to the owners are $14,950. Most of it is the premium itself, plus those add-ons that all have to be put there, stamp duty, etc. And then there's a broker fee. Now, what the SCA has done is they've said, we want to simplify this. This is too complicated. So what have they done? Well, they've left out GST on the premium, which means that you can't work out what the actual premium payable to the insurer is. So that's why I've got 2 purple rows there. The second one should be the total insurance premium. And I've discovered that almost no brokers show that number, and therefore the strata managers don't see the number, and nor do the owners. What they do see is the broker fee added in and the total insurance costs down the bottom. Why is this incomplete? Let's go to the next slide, which is part 2 of the same thing. What we now have, looking at mine on the left, there's a commission, in this case $2,000, and in nearly all cases the commission is 20% of the premium when there is a commission involved. The broker fee, which was on the previous section, is added in to give total intermediary remuneration. Now, and then the question is, well, who gets what out of this? It's pretty common to see the strata manager receiving more than half, and in some cases all of that commission, and the broker receives whatever's left. In this particular example, the strata manager is getting $1,750 out of the $3,000, and the broker's getting the other $1,250. So you add those 2 up and you're back at the number just above the $3,000. You add back in the base premium net of commission and all the other charges and the GST, and you end up with the same bottom line. Now, what the SCA has done is they have not given this subtotal on the left. So they do show the commission, but you have to go back looking to find out how that adds up to the total intermediary remuneration. And they do show the allocation below, but they do not show the reconciliation back to the total. So we've got a complete template. SCA effort to simplify it. In my opinion, the simplification isn't working because it actually makes it more complicated. You can't work out what all the bits are. Nevertheless, how do the owners benefit? Well, they benefit by this disclosure if they can get hold of the disclosure. That's the intention. This template is the starting point of the disclosure. Without this disclosure, the owners don't really know what questions to ask, what they're asking, what they're being asked to pay, what they're paying for. And what they're paying for actually is the services of the broker, and they're paying also a part of their, or they're paying within the premium is a commission, and that's part of that commission is coming back to the strata manager, who I guess in most cases is going to use that to, if not to add to profits, then at least to reduce the strata fees. Phase one was all about trying to get this out on the table, and it's underway now. It hasn't really happened. I've seen some broker invoices recently. They don't include a lot of this information, therefore the strata managers don't have it, and therefore the strata managers can't give it to the owners. But the SCA has said they want all this in place by the 1st of July. Hopefully there's a lot of work going on. Well, I know there is quite a bit of work in some cases going on to try and get into this position. And once we get to this position, then at least we've got the possibility of owners asking the right questions about, at least about the remuneration, and understanding what it is that they're getting for their money.
How will the recommended improvements in disclosure practices impact strata owners?
What they should do is give the strata owners the knowledge and information to be able to have a dialogue on an equal footing with the strata manager. That's really the intention.
So let's move on to the focus of today's webinar, the Phase 2 report. Can you elaborate on the different types of conflicts of interest that can arise from the intermediary remuneration structures, John?
Well, both of these arrangements, if we just leave the screen up as we've got it, the share of remuneration that the strata manager gets, that it's a conflict of interest for the strata manager to take commission shares from the broker, and it's a conflict of interest for the broker to actually deliver that remuneration to the strata manager. And what happened, it's a pretty unsatisfactory situation. What I showed on those templates was that there is a commission rebate from the broker to the strata manager, and a broker fee that goes back to the broker. And the broker, so the commission is included in the premium. The broker fee is additional. So what the body corporate is doing is paying the premium, including a commission, and they're paying a broker fee on top of that. How do they work out what they're doing? Well, what happens is the strata manager agrees with the broker on a share of the commission that it will receive, and this is quite often negotiated. So if we go back some years, the strata manager was probably taking 10%, maybe 12.5%. Now they're taking 15, 17.5, 20% in many cases. And the broker says, well, if I've got to give up so much of my commission to you, then you need to give me a broker fee. And the broker fee can be anything from 5% on top of the 20 of commission that's got to come out of the premium, up to some number like 20% or more. Anyway, this system is what I call the commission rebate broker fee system. And that there is a conflict of interest in these cases, because the strata manager is really saying to the broker, look, I don't mind giving, the broker, the strata manager says, in order to appoint you as a broker, I need you to give me part or all of your commission. And the broker says, well, I'm okay with that, provided you arrange for me a broker fee. And that broker fee is additional to the premium. And so we have a situation where the owners are paying for two lots of insurance costs. One is the premium, one is the broker fee. And then, but the level of each of these is effectively negotiated in most cases between the two of them. So it's done sort of in club. it's not done in conjunction with the Strata committee. Usually, it's presented to them as the position that they want to take. And what we've seen is a creeping increase in these fees, and we see some that are very high and some that are very competitive. So when you add the two together, you might have 25%, or you might have 40% or 45 or 50% of the premium added on to go back to the broker and the strata manager. And that's where the conflict is.
So in your report, you mentioned black box arrangements. Could you explain what black box arrangements are in the context of strata insurance?
This is, if you like, the standard commission rebate broker fee system that's in operation. And what in some cases, some brokers, and I think some strata managers, have set up a joint venture between them that sits between the strata manager and the broker, and the broker fee and the commission go in there, and they then come back out in some form. They come back out to the strata manager and the broker, but they're usually designed to hide some of these payments, and also to enable the strata manager to say, we take no commissions, because the commissions have gone into this joint venture black box, and they're just held there, and they come out as a profit share or a dividend later in the year to the strata manager and to the broker. They're shared between them in some way, and the owners think they're getting a nil commission set up when they're actually not, and they don't actually know what the fees and commissions are that are sitting inside there. So that's an unwelcome development that's occurred in the last few years. It's not done by everybody, of course. It's just done by some. What we're facing here is a situation, and I have to say this publicly, there are brokers and strata managers out here who are doing a wonderful job, and they're giving good value for the job that they do to their owners' corporations. But there are some who are feeding off this and trying to keep concealed some of the broker fees and strata broker fees and commissions in order to feather their own nests, and that's contrary to the best interests of the owners corporation, because the bigger the broker fee, which is what's the variable here, the bigger the broker fee, the more the owners corporations pay on top of their insurance premium.
And that leads us into the next question, John, which is beyond the black box arrangements. Are there any other questionable remuneration practices that we should be aware of?
Well, the commission rebate system itself is questionable. I don't think it should exist, but until it's understood how it works, people can't really put themselves in a position to debate it and challenge it. So what I've been saying is, and what my phase 2 report says, is that the commission rebates themselves to the strata managers are a conflict of interest. The way they're negotiated and the broker fees negotiated are a conflict of interest as well, because they're usually done by the broker and strata manager, and then they inform the owners corporation what the charges are. So all that is a conflict. And then there's a second problem. So that's the first problem, that there is a conflict, but there are brokers and strata managers out there who are deciding amongst themselves in their own best interests instead of in the owner's best interests how much to charge. So that's the second conflict. Now, the only way to do away with these conflicts, or even to manage them properly, is to remove them. And that means, in my view, phasing out this system of commission rebates to strata managers and then additional fees for the owners to the broker. And I should qualify this in one respect, and that is that there is a growing number of strata managers and brokers where they're not using commissions, they're using net premiums net of commissions, and then a broker fee which is shared between the broker and the strata manager. It's a better system, I would argue, because it's clearer as to what's going on, but it's still conflicted because the strata manager is sharing the broker's fee instead of charging all its costs directly back to the owners, which it could do. Nevertheless, the commissions part of this, the commission rebate broker fee system, really ought to be phased out, and that's what I've been advocating.
And how do all of these practices affect the strata insurance premiums for owners, John?
Doesn't affect the premium at all. The premium is the amount that the insurer or the underwriting agency invoices to the broker. That's the premium. And the broker fee is additional to that. So there's no change to the premium, no matter how big or small the broker fee is, because it's not determined by the broker or the strata manager. There can be, if there's no commission, then the premium does come down 20%, and there could be a reduction in insurance costs out of that. But instead of talking about how do we get the premium down, we should be really saying how do we optimize the total costs, which are the premium plus the fees charged by the intermediaries. It's about the fees being a fair charge for the services on offer. That's really what we're looking for, and by making everything openly disclosed and transparent, and giving the owners a chance to understand what it is or how this all works, and letting them participate actively in the process of appointing and remunerating brokers and strata managers, that's how we break down the conflicts of interest.
And if we can just go back to the black box arrangements and other questionable practices, John, are these technically legal, and why haven't they been addressed before?
Well, they're only illegal in the sense that the broker or strata manager or both could be accused of not acting in the best interests, and their fiduciary duty is to act in the best interests of their clients. And I know that you've had Michael Kleinschmidt and other people on talking about this fiduciary duty and the best interests. That's the conflict of interest. So it's only illegal in that sense, and for any owners for any owners to take to court, which they'd have to do, the broker or strata manager, to try and verify this and get some recompense through the legal system, that would be very difficult to do, and it doesn't really happen. So what's going on is that we have a set of, if you like, these conflicts of interest are ethical questions. We've got unethical behaviour by some brokers and strata managers, and they're all, if you like, incentivized by the system to maximize their own income. That's not surprising, is it? That's how business works. But it's another thing to ask whether that's in the best interests of the owners. So what I think is needed is breaking down this system, removing the commissions from the system, and then once that's done, I think everybody would understand it a lot better, and then the discussion is really about the fees, not about commissions. And it's also should create the opportunity for owners to charge, if you like, to be charged a fee for the services of the strata manager and a fee for the services of the broker, instead of having it all bound up in these commission rebates and fees.
And in the phase 2 report, you did make some significant recommendations and some timelines for those recommendations. Can you give us an overview of the timelines and the recommendations, John?
I think that this system should be phased out. And if we did that, we'd eliminate those primary conflicts of interest and take away the temptations on brokers and strata managers to look to line their own pockets and to support better their clients. And let me just emphasize again, I'm not suggesting that every broker or strata manager is trying to line their own pockets against the best interests of their owners, but it does happen in quite a few cases. So what do? We firstly create transparent disclosure, and that's what a lot of this discussion's been about. It's what the templates are about. It's about enabling owners to understand what's going on and to participate more actively in the insurance component of their strata management services. Once we've got transparent disclosure, we can then actually phase out the commissions, and I believe that there are quite a few brokers around and strata managers right now who are moving more towards fees only instead of fees plus commissions, and that would be that's highly desirable. The brokers taking commissions in a way is okay. I mean, that the whole insurance industry works on that basis, although in this case, if you just phased out the strata manager rebates, you would leave the brokers with 20% commission, and they don't need 20%. In fact, the more competitive brokers are charging typically 7.5 to 10% of on average. I mean, this changes when you have big or small strata properties, but anyway, the brokers at the moment through this commission rebate broker fee system are only receiving often 10% or less. So we couldn't move to a situation where they then got 20% commission and kept it all. That wouldn't make sense either. So to phase out the system, we do need to remove commission rebates that strata managers get, and to have a fee arrangement that's shared perhaps in some way between strata manager and broker to support the insurance services that they both give to their owners and that they need to have paid for because of all the work that has to go on to arrange and purchase the insurances. And so if we can get to that disclosure during the course of this year, because we're already into 2024, and brokers and strata managers can work out what they want to do next, then with any luck, we will start phasing out this system by some form of structural realignment. I've called it a transition into a fee-only system.
So would you recommend, John, at this stage, strata management firms out there would start thinking about ways they will transition forward?
Yes, absolutely. Because the SCA is promoting this, and I'm so pleased they are. That's what has to be done, because they recognise, or the leaders of the SCA do understand these conflicts of interest, and some in the organisation have been worried for a while about it and what to do about it. It's difficult for individual strata managers in a way because the system is so entrenched, but they should be preparing now. They should already be in the process of the disclosure that I talked about earlier, and the disclosure has still got a way to go, as you can see from the first couple of slides, the templates. But then to prepare to move away from the commission rebate system is the next step, and I believe that ought to be being thought through as the disclosure is ramping up. Let's get the information out on the table and let the owners and the strata managers and the brokers think about how this all works. And by the way, the NIBA's Code of Practice, which came into force in respect of disclosure in November last year, 6 months ago, it requires a lot of this disclosure as well, because it hasn't required that in the past. So I'm sure there are brokers and strata managers out there who simply see disclosure as an end in itself. And I say to them, well, it's really not in this case. It would be if there wasn't a second intermediary, it'd be all right. And that's what NIBA is after primarily, because most of their members are not actually involved in strata insurance. But it really, I think it's a precursor to the removal of commissions. I mean, we don't have regulation here, by the way, and some people see that as desirable, lets them do what they want. Others say, "Oh, I don't like the bad reputation that the commission rebate system, or that the high fees and commissions charged by some are giving to the industry," whether you're talking about the brokers or the strata managers, and they would like to see all of this out in the open.
The next thing I thought I might ask you is whether the guidelines address the issues that are occurring with the black box arrangements.
Oh, okay. Well, I think the answer to that is no. They're the way they're set up, they're designed to be invisible. This is within the disclosure handbook that's on my website, and which I think owners should all be having a look at. This is designed to, the left-hand side is about who is what's the body corporate, where is it, who's the strata manager, who is the broker, etc. And it introduces the second half there, which I refer to as the business model of the broker and strata manager. The intention is that the owners can expect, or the intention is the strata managers should fill out both of these pages and hand them to the owners, and the owners can work through it to understand what business model the owners are being presented with by their strata manager and broker. Now, the closest we get to these black box things is that in the right-hand side here, where it's just a tick the box system, there is a reference at item B. There's 5 or 6, 7 items here from A to G. The second one, B, says third-party entity between broker and strata manager. You either tick none, or you tick the other one that says there is a corporate authorised representative or other third-party entity that sits between the two, the broker and the strata manager. And then there's a reference down the bottom to what to say about that. But until the brokers and strata managers embrace this, you won't see anything, or unless regulators enter the game. And this has been a bane of those who want to improve reputation and improve consumer support. They would love to see this opened up, and nobody knows how to do it unless the regulators require it. So I say that much. I don't know whether there are any brokers or strata managers on this looking at this session who think that I'm being unreasonable or expecting too much or hampering their commercial activities in a way that they don't like. I know there are some around like that. And that's what we are faced with here. The impetus for people who are not doing it to have it opened up is that it's believed that a lot of the people who do it are claiming that there are no commissions involved in their insurances when in fact there are, because they're hidden in these joint ventures, or what I call black boxes.
And is there any way owners can find out that that's happening apart from presenting the strata manager with a form like this to fill out? Is that the best way to get around that?
Well, that's part of it. The other way is the SCA template is limited here because of the absence of the reference to the underwriter's premium. If you don't see the invoice from every invoice from the underwriting agency to the broker says on it whether it's got a commission or no commission. So unless you can see that, you don't know, and generally the brokers don't pass that on to the strata managers, although I'm sure that if the strata managers ask for it, they will get it. Well, they should. So the only way you can really know what's going on is to have that template filled out fully, including the bits that the SCA is yet to add to it. And I might say here, by the way, that the SCA is keen to make this an effective system, and so they're aware now of these gaps, and hopefully they'll fill them before too long.
Let's talk about actionable steps for owners and committee members. What are some red flags that might indicate a potential conflict of interest with a broker or a strata manager?
What you often see with the quotes is the broker might get 3 quotes and show the total amount payable if it were to take any of those quotes. That number down the bottom, if it's got no components, then you don't know whether there's commission, you don't know what the broker fee is, you don't know what the insurer is charging. And unfortunately, the SCA template at the moment doesn't help you there. And it's compounded in cases where the total down the bottom, some brokers refer to that as the premium, which is itself incorrect because it should be the premium plus the broker fee and any other fees. Well, usually there are no other fees. So the first red flag would be that there's a reluctance to disclose. I suppose the next the next red flag would be accurate and complete disclosure. So I've just mentioned an absence within the quotations that often occurs. The next one would be lack of clarity as to whether there is or isn't commission involved. And associated with that will be, well, what's the share of commission of the total commission that the strata manager is taking? Is it 15, 7.5%, 20%? Some cases, I believe it's even higher than 20%. And because the whole market has developed very substantially over the last decade or so, it's a big business now. There's something like 1.5 billion of premiums going through the system for strata insurance, and it's going to keep increasing. So there are plenty of temptations in there.
So committee members, how can they ensure greater transparency in remuneration practices when dealing with intermediaries?
Well, I think the answer is to utilise what we've got on the screen at the moment, this business arrangements templates, if you like, and the invoice templates and quotation templates, and ask their strata manager to give them the full information using my templates, which go beyond at the moment, go beyond the SCA ones. Hopefully the SCA will come good and build in the little bits that are missing, and make it and be more open to their owners. I mean, what I do know is that there are plenty of strata managers out there who are fearful about this, and arguably for good short-term reason. They think that if they have to give up their commission shares, that would cause them to raise their prices. What's missing out of the thinking of those strata managers who think that prices would have to go up if they lost their commission shares is that the cost to the owners in principle doesn't change because instead of taking a share of commission out of the premium goes down because there's a net premium, 20% comes off, and the charges that the strata manager, or the rebate that they were getting, gets added into the strata levies, and the net cost, there should be no particular change to the owner's costs. And that's what the strata managers and brokers should be focusing on. What's the cost to the owner here, and what's a fair charge for the services that we offer as strata managers or as brokers?
How can the phase 2 recommendations change the way strata insurance is brokered and managed?
It's about the financial arrangements. I mean, there are lots of professional strata managers and brokers out there doing a sound job, but some of them are charging more than they ought to. And when they do that, usually the owners are not conscious of it. So what we really would come to, ultimately, if we could work our way out of this current set of remuneration arrangements, is a more competitive market and a more open relationship between owners and strata managers. Now, some owners, corporations, will always be looking for the cheapest price, not just for the insurance, but also for the services they're getting. But others will say, well, if I'm getting this and that service, I'm quite happy to pay extra for it or pay more for it. And it becomes just a more rational and more equal relationship between owners and the intermediaries. And with any luck, that leads us into a more professional reputation, as well as more professional management of the insurance-related services.
And we have the Strata Insurance Disclosure Handbook up on the screen at the moment. We'll send a link to that out to our audience this afternoon when we send the recording of this out. We'll also provide a recording in the description down the bottom of this video. But what other resources as well as this are available to owners to stay informed about future developments in strata insurance practices?
At the present time, the SCA is the primary source of that information beyond the material that's on my website. And what you see on the screen at the moment is just 2 pages out of, I think, 15 or something like that that comprise the disclosure handbook. You raised an interesting question. As this evolves, is there a need for more advice beyond what comes out of people, tuning into your webinars like this, Nikki? That's a good question. I think it's an open question. In the way what many of us are aware of is that the ABC has had a shot at this whole thing. The Department of Fair Trading in New South Wales is currently awaiting a report around what the ABC was dealing with. So there may be some moves that come out of all of that. We know too that ASIC and ACCC have been pressed. I mean, you've been talking with Tyrone Shanderman. He has been pressing those regulators to look more closely at this. You've had Michael Kleinschmidt and others talking about conflicts of interest. So we're in and then you've got all of this material we've talked about today. So we've got a bit of a moving feast, moving slowly at the moment. And I think it's great to see the SCA putting resources into this and trying to respond to what it now sees, I think, as the community need. It's unfortunate to hear, as I have, and you may have too, that some strata managers are withdrawing from the SCA because they think they don't need to be part of this. Well, and that's causing some people in the industry to say, well, shouldn't we have regulation around this? So we've got this situation where you've got NIBA and the SCA as industry associations who have their codes of practice and so on and are trying to have them used, but there's no obligation on strata managers or brokers to be members of those associations. So, there are loopholes, but this is a progressive thing. It's already 2.5 years or 2 years since I put out my first report. There's been a certain amount of movement. We wouldn't be having this session today if there hadn't been. There's more to come during the course of this year, and I think and then of course, if you think about timing, let's say I'm a strata manager, I'm getting ready to do the full disclosures starting 1st of July. Well, I've then got a 12-month period through where my portfolio will go through renewal. And I know the disclosures won't be perfect in the first year. So there's time to be it'll take time. And we don't, as I say, we don't know what the regulators are going to do, how interested they will become in this. Things would move more quickly if governments got involved, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
And I think the positives that have come out of these last few months since the ABC story hit in March, John, also was a broader awareness of the issues, and there's been more discussion around the issues occurring. And I would hope that flows out to the broader audience of lot owners out there, and they're more aware with these stories coming through from ABC about the situation, and it gets them to search for more information and also seek out information and possibly ask questions of their strata management company.
Yes. And look, the professional brokers and strata managers will survive nicely out of this, I think. So standards may well be lifted across the industry too, which would be good.
We hope so. All right, and something I'm sure everyone has been waiting for. What are some practical examples of how to ask better questions about intermediary remuneration when dealing with brokers or strata managers?
If you're the owners and your strata manager is not giving you all the answers, that's where you go for them. It's this piece that's on the screen plus those templates. And the templates that we showed on the screen here today are for intermediary remuneration relate only to, I just showed the current year for the insurance that is being purchased, being invoiced, but it starts back with the quotations where you should have 3 columns and plus the existing one. So it's a matter of the owners asking and expecting, and they have a right to expect to have this information given to them, and then they can move forward from there. I don't think there's anything else much. I mean, the other things are about the services. When I was doing this work, going back last year and the year before, quite a few owners asked questions, and I think you've had this, Nikki, in some of your other sessions about what is it that the strata managers are doing for insurance, and what are the brokers doing? What are the services that we're getting? Now, it's open to, and there's a part in my handbook where I wouldn't say it's comprehensive, but it gives an opportunity for even using a ticker box approach, if you want, for the for the owners to have some awareness of what sort of services they might expect from their brokers and strata managers. And as you well know, the strata managers, some give a really comprehensive support, and others give a rather limited support. And I think it's very different if you're in a 8 or 10 unit apartment block versus a 300 unit apartment block. The whole thing's quite different as well. So there's got to be recognition of all of those variations.
And I think there's quite a difference too, John, between what some strata management firms include in that commission that they take, how much service they actually provide for that during the year, and other strata management firms that see some of the services as outside of that commission that they've taken, and they will on charge for those extra services as well as taking the commission.
Yep. And look, there's nothing wrong with either of those if you're upfront and clear about it and the owners understand and think it's reasonable. A lot of aspects of this I know are difficult to discuss in general terms because of the variations of the kind you just referred to. The final slide was simply the complete template. So this is the one that I advocated, which is in two parts at the beginning of this presentation, and I've put the complete one in. And this is the one which, as I said at the beginning, the SCA has left some of the items out, thinking they were simplifying it. My proposition is you haven't simplified it if you do that. You've made it looks simpler because there are fewer entries, but it's not possible unless you're an accountant or an actuary or something, or a detail lawyer. It's hard to work out exactly what all the bits are unless you use all the items in this template.
Question 1, New South Wales. After some time haggling with our strata manager, we're now apparently paying no commission on our insurance renewal. The insurance commission payments shows a 0 in our SCA standard contract, although we pay a high admin fee explained by the strata manager as follows. So the strata manager said, I asked the broker to obtain a net rate policy. This means that no commission is paid to either us, the strata manager, or the broker. Similar to the arrangements with the strata manager, the commission is now being charged by the broker as an admin fee instead. This is the reason for the increase. The admin fee increased from $700 in 2020 to 2021 up to over $4,000 in 2024 to 25. Does this sound fair?
Because we don't know of the 4,000, we don't know how much of that was commission before, how much was a fee. This is a good example of the lack of disclosure. So they've given you two numbers, or this person's got the two numbers. It's impossible to know what's behind those without more information. Now, if that particular person is really concerned about it and wants to go get the template filled in, then we could have a look at that.
So go back and ask the strata manager for more information, John?
Yes, which would include a full comparison of last year and this year. What's the premium? What's the broker fee? What's the commission in both cases? And then what was shared between the two, the broker and the strata manager.
Now, John, this one's a national question. Our insurance brokers also own our strata management company. Should we be concerned about this relationship?
Not if everything's disclosed, but if it's not disclosed, well, who knows? There are such setups that are well done, and there are others that are not well done. So yes, you need to just ask for enough information to satisfy yourself, and if you're not satisfied, then the strata manager could be asked to go and see what an alternative broker might be prepared to assist with.
New South Wales. Our owners corporation is in the midst of working through an annual insurance policy renewal. The insurance broker provided a report to all owners with 3 insurance policy quotes to compare, along with their financial services guide, which quite clearly specifies that they are not independent, impartial, or unbiased in relation to the provision of personal advice and the impact of this on you. However, when we wrote to the insurance broker requesting to have the quotes provided of other insurers whom they do not deal with regularly, the response was simply to state that the reason they approached the insurers noted in their report is that they offer comprehensive insurance products. Now, do you have any suggestions on how to navigate all of this to ensure we are treated fairly?
It's not a very helpful response from the broker, really. I mean, there are only 5 or 6 or maybe 7 underwriters out there that the brokers can approach, really, and quite often some of those decline to quote. Quite a lot of brokers will be quite explicit about who they approached and why they couldn't get quotes from some and why they got them from others and so on. In this case, that's unclear. And what it signifies, I think, is the difficulty for the owners who don't understand the insurance marketplace to know exactly what to ask here. And when they ask the question, the broker may not come back with a clear response. I've seen that happen a lot. And when that happens, you don't know whether it's a defensiveness on the part of the operative concerned or whether it is just a lack of appreciation of how to deal with that kind of question for a customer. And this is where the role of the strata manager is so important, to try and assist both parties to understand each other well enough to get a suitable answer to the question.
This one from New South Wales. How can an owners corporation ensure transparency around what is included in the gross premium shown on the broker's invoice? And how can the OC that opts for a without commissions agreement with its strata manager determine whether it is receiving the appropriate reduction in the insurance premium charged?
I think the only way of validating that is to get the broker to send through a copy of the invoice from the underwriting agency, because all the ones I've seen say explicitly that it does or doesn't include commission, whereas brokers usually, unless they're pressed on it, they won't send through. They almost never send through the invoice from the underwriter. They only send through their own invoice, and the ability to compare the two, the insurer's invoice and the broker's invoice, is what you would have to ask in that situation.
And are they required to provide that, John?
Well, is the broker required to?
Is the broker required to?
Well, I think under the code, the new NIBA code, the answer probably is yes. I would say it is, because the new code requires commissions and fees to be disclosed. And so I would think that it would be a brave broker that would say, no, I'm sorry, I can't give you that information. Although I'm pretty sure that in the past that's been reasonably common. Yeah, okay. This whole movement that we're seeing should open up all of these questions because the broker is now required to get consent to the remuneration arrangements from the owners, and some strata managers will be relying on delegated authority from the body corporate to do that, but I don't think that's valid under the code, the new NIBA code. That's not yet been talked about much publicly, and it's one of those situations where there might need to be a bit of pressure brought by the OCN or maybe the SCA even on NIBA, and it's all on the brokers to come good with this, because we've got an environment too where the brokers generally don't know what's gone between the strata manager and the owners. And these requirements of disclosure are intended to, and some of my recommendations too, which we didn't talk about today, are designed to get that communication going so that there is no mystery here, and that if there are high fees or fees that people think are high, well, at least they're known and they can be discussed. And there are plenty of cases where high fees may be justified, but unless it's known what they are, then you can't work with it.
So at the moment, the strata manager really sits in between that relationship of the three parties, doesn't it? And liaises between the broker and then back to the body corporate or owners corporation. So you're seeing a future where there might be more of a connection between the broker and the owners corporation or body corporate as well directly.
Yes. And you see already, you see quite a bit of that in the larger properties, because there are a lot of insurance issues that the broker would understand and can talk to the underwriter about that the strata manager may not be aware of. So there's, and the better strata managers and brokers are quite comfortable with that. What we're trying to work through is situations where there's a defensiveness and an unwillingness to be open, and for the fear of losing some revenue.
Now, before we finish, John, do you have any last words that you'd like to leave us with?
I think change has got to come, and it is coming. I'll say one last thing here. I know the SCA has asked people to nominate conflicts of interest in their, or that there's a box, I think there's a question, is there a conflict of interest here? The conscientious ones have said, well, how do I answer that question? Others will just tick the box and move on. My point is that every broker and every strata manager that's using the commission rebate broker fee system is involved in conflicts of interest, which are not really healthy in general, and that system should be phased out. That's what I've said from the beginning, and I believe that will ultimately occur. How long it takes and in what form, we don't know. The underlying issue with that is that the broker usually treats the strata, or often treats the strata manager as the client instead of the actual client. So that's where the best interest question arises. So to keep your mind on who is the customer is the driving force here, or should be.
Okay, that's a great way to end it. If you gained value from this video, please hit like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're looking for information about parking, strata insurance, defects and more, head over to lookupstrata.com.au or sign up to our free weekly newsletter via the link in the description box below.